ഹലോ, എൻ്റെ പേര് റോസ്. എൻ്റെ മലയാളം അത്ര നല്ലതല്ലാത്തത് കൊണ്ട് ഞാൻ ഇംഗ്ലീഷിലാണ് സാക്ഷ്യം പറയാൻ പോകുന്നത്. My Udambadi journey was quite different in the fact that it was more of a learning, more of a spiritual learning for me. So I was pretty good in studies. I used to come first in class all the time. I used to do really good in interviews, and even job I used to get superstar promotions. And so I had worked for around 4 years in this financial company, and I decided I wanted a change. So I wanted to do either an MBA or a job, a different job. So I applied to a few jobs, and I got an interview invite from a firm in London. And so I did my normal prayers, I prepared, but I could not perform well in that interview. And that was sort of my first big failure. So that's when I saw that my mom was going to renew her Udambadi. And so I thought, okay, let me put these two intentions in her Udambadi itself. So I put two intentions. One was to get a good job or to get a good MBA admissions. So I had to do the GMAT exam, which is an MBA entrance exam. And so that's what I put my two Udambadis for. And even in terms of the exam, I was not very scared because I was pretty good in writing exams. So I just put it on the Udambadi sheet. But on the day of the exam, I realized I went to a different test center itself. So I kind of like, my entire exam day was not perfect. And so I couldn't score really well on that exam day. So that's when I thought, okay, this is, second biggest failure again. So I thought, let me take my own Udambadi and let me do it really well, to the letter. So I came here, I took my Udambadi, I decided to do everything. I visited the sick, I distributed the papers, I used to read the Bible for 30 minutes. And so now I was very strong. I was just okay, fine, I'm doing this really well. Things are going to go really great now. So I decided to register for the exam, the GMAT exam again. And I wrote it once more. And this time I was okay, I'm for sure getting full because I've done, my Udambadi and stuff really well. But I got almost the same score I got last time. And so that was when I realized, okay, what is going on? I was really confused. And I had applied to a few jobs and I got rejections from there as well. So, that's when I was oh my God, I'm feeling so sad, I'm feeling so angry. But it's in these moments, right, in these failures that you really can see your faith bloom. So that's what it was like God telling me, you don't know what the next steps are, but I'm just asking you to put one foot in front of the other and trust me. So, you should, when I was pretty successful, I knew that God was good, right? So it was like God telling me, do not forget in the darkness what you knew was true in the light. So you knew God was true in the light, but now when you all of a sudden not getting the success you thought, don't forget that God's still with you. So, it was still a very, very confusing, emotional roller coaster ride. But then I decided, okay, let me, whatever marks I have, that's enough. Madhav's there with me. And so I decided to apply to business schools. So I applied to one school in India, which is the Indian School of Business, and I applied to a few abroad. And my prayer was, God, please don't let me go to the Indian School of Business. I want to go somewhere abroad. So I continued my prayers. I was doing all of the Udambadi stuff as well. And I used to just get rejections from every other school but the Indian School of Business. So that's when, it really struck me about how much you need to trust God, right? Because there are in times of darkness is when your faith blooms, when you realize, okay, God's ways is not your ways. All of this while I was saying, God, what, can you help me do this? Can you help me do that? But that's not, you're not God, right? God is God. And even the way I used to think of Madhav, right? I used to think, if I do all of these things, I would get these blessings in return. So it was almost like an ATM machine transaction. But that's when I realized even Madhav's main phrase was, your will be done, right? So we always need to surrender ourselves to God. And so that's when I realized, let me fully surrender myself to God. And I'm like, God, it's your will, not my will. And so I decided, okay, even if I'm not feeling happy about all of these things, I used to think everyone else is, when I listen to this testimonies and stuff, I used to be like, everyone has so many miracles during Udambadi, but it looks like during my Udambadi period, I'm just getting rejections and failures. So, but that's when I realized God was actually teaching me, you learn a lot through your failures than through your successes. That I wouldn't have learned to completely surrender myself to God if it weren't for all of these failures. So I would, so then after that, I was like, okay, God, I'm going to Indian School of Business. if that's what your will is. I went, I joined in 2 weeks. I got an admission acceptance call from one of the top business schools in the world called INSEAD from Singapore. And so that's when I realized this Udambari was not a journey of worldly blessings. It was for sure, because I got admission into one of the top business schools in the world, which despite no qualifications from mine, like I had a low exam score, I did not, I didn't have a lot of work experience and stuff, but still I got it. But what was more important and what was more exciting about this Udambari journey was just how much spiritual knowledge and like how, you change the perspective of how you see God, right? God should be in the steering wheel and not you, and you should always just keep trusting God. Praise to you, God.